Independent Brokers of America. I get this question a lot with young brokers who are coming into the business saying, I want to provide level funding with my clients, for my clients, but I don't know where to start with these. Folks, they're green to it. I may understand level funding, but how do I communicate this properly and deeply so that I am compliant, but also able to really show my people how much better it can be on a level funded program if the plan qualifies? We're going to cover that in the next couple of minutes. So sit tight. Let's dig in and let's start from the top. Number one, we've all heard the horror stories of why plans fail or of plans failing in the level funded space. This is not new. This is something that happens from time to time. And most of the time it happens because the expectations of the plan and then what was communicated by the broker are wrong. The first thing we're going to dissuade you from using ever is level funding is just like fully insured. No, it's not. Level funding is self-funding with a bunch of widgets on top of it. This is a more complicated program, period. So when you see people out there in the marketplace communicating about level funding, saying level funding is just like fully insured, they're wrong. And you're going to get yourself into a bit of a pickle if you communicate that way with your clients. So when do they fail? They fail in a couple of cases. Number one, when a group has massive turnover. If you have a group that turns over all of its employees every year, you're going to have a lot of claims volatility because the underwriting is not going to work. Number two, if you have a group that cannot foresee the future and they don't think they're going to be in business for another year, level funding is a terrible idea. These are 12-month contracts. Stop loss has to abide by the 12-month contract. If you don't abide by it, Mr. Business Owner, stop loss is not going to be nice. So make sure they do not have massive turnover. Make sure that they are going to be in business for more than a year. And also make sure they're not going to have massive layoffs because these are based on the percentage of people or the percentage of expected claims inside of the existing group of people. So if you have a client who's going to lay off a bunch of people, do it after the layoff because stop loss has the right, if you have a big census change, to re-rate the plan based on that group's characteristics. Now, there's different caveats for that in terms of percentages, but in general, it's about 20%, maybe 30% on some plans. So keep that in mind. If you have big layoffs, don't do a level funded plan. Additionally, whenever they're communicating about level funding, when you're sitting down with your client, the next big failure point is the time frame expectation. Level funding takes longer to get set up. Folks, we're setting up a brand new self-funded health plan with a bunch of widgets on top of it. If you go in and you sit down with your client and say, I can get this done in 2 days, they're going to be very upset with you because I have never seen it be done in 2 days. You're going to fail if you make that promise. And once you break your word in the sales process, everything else you say is going to be suspect. So set the correct time frame expectations at the very beginning of the sales process. This is going to be a 4 to 6 week process. All right. Now, when we talk about that process, the next thing that you want to do as the broker to avoid the failure and so you can explain this well so the business owners know is explain the problem that you're trying to address, not the product. The product is level funding. The problem that they have is cost, transparency, employee retention. These are all things that affect the business owners. So if you talk about it from this is what this product does, okay, who cares? Nobody wants a hole in the wall. If you understand this old story, what they want is a hole in the wall with a nail in it so they can hang the picture. Talk about the picture, the problem that it solves, rather than the product itself. Level funding solves a couple of problems. So the problems that it solves for business owners. If business owners have very high turnover because they can't afford employee benefits, well, level funding may be able to reduce their monthly cost. If employers have no transparency and so they have no idea what their future costs are going to be, which induces massive stress to the CFO, to the business owner, as well as gives them a terrible feeling every renewal season. Level funding gives you transparency so you can see where your dollars are going and you can forecast your renewals. And finally, level funding enables a surplus if the plan runs well, which means instead of getting weaker and weaker in every negotiating position, if you have the surplus, then you get stronger and stronger because you keep your money from previous plan years. And so the business owner can now build up a reserve to deploy as they need so that they're planned for the future. So talk about the problems that it solves, and those problems are always going to be unique to that business owner. People value different things. So sit down and explore that with them. Don't talk about the product. Find out what the problem is first and see if the product can solve it, rather than trying to force the product on that business owner. The next part of this explanation, after you've sat down with the client and you've explored their actual needs, their actual problems that you're trying to solve, is you're going to need to talk about what level funding is. So at this point, you can talk about the nuances of the product. Level funding is a self-funded program that reflects the actual expected claims of that group of people. So if you have a group of people who have very low expected claims, they're quite healthy, then you can explain that to the business owner. And you can say to them, look, if you're overpaying, if you're paying much, much more than your people would actually consume, then you are subsidizing everybody else. Okay, do you want to subsidize your competition? It's a very simple question. The answer to that for most business owners is absolutely not. I don't want to subsidize anybody. I want to be as honest and as transparent in my market as possible. Okay, so talk about level funding. Level funding reflects reality. Now, with that reflection of reality, the benefit is you can price it to that group of people. The drawback is if that group of people is already benefiting from the effective subsidies of the fully insured marketplace as it pools everybody together, they are going to be happier inside of that high-risk pool simply because they are getting a, quote, free ride or a less expensive ride at the expense of everyone else. In that situation, level funding is not going to be a great situation for them or not going to be a great solution for them. Additionally, make sure that you communicate that this is for expected claims. This is risk. So whenever we look at the future, predictions are very, very hard, and we can predict the known risk. So RX risk is generally pretty stable. So if somebody's on a $10,000 a month drug, and believe me, that's not an uncommon cost, then we can say that that's going to be $120,000 for the year. But we can't predict well if somebody's going to break their leg while they fall down the stairs on an icy day. That's very hard to predict. So that's part of the insurance cost or part of the cost that we're pricing for. And when we talk about the guardrails around this, the big thing that we're going to look at is stop loss. Now, I am always surprised by how many brokers don't understand stop loss. Stop loss is the protection for the plan. The plan is on the hook for all of the claims. Stop loss effectively is, hey, things went really bad with claims. These are all valid claims, but they go over what we expected the claims to be. Well, stop loss steps in, and they start to reimburse the plan as the plan pays those expenses. That is what stop loss is. Inside of level funding, if you're max funded, realize stop loss has a deductible. That deductible is the attachment point or the claims fund, almost invariably. You marry those two things together if you're max funded so that if they pay their max amount every month, that is what they pay for claims that are valid and adjudicated throughout the plan's year. Stop loss is the protection for the bad years. And on small group, you're going to get bad years every couple, 3, 4, 7 years or so. As you explain the stop loss, and as you explain it as a pre-funded corporate deductible for the claims account, if you use that way, then you can also say that pre-funded corporate deductible, if you don't hit your deductible, is still your money. This is where level funding wins long term because you have now pre-funded that money. That's your money, Mr. Business Owner. It's the plan's money. And if you don't use it, it stays with you, which enables you to build that long-term ballasting. It enables you to effectively be able to protect yourself against increases in cost or increases in expected expenses on future years. You are being prudent today. You're working harder today, Mr. Business Owner and Mr. Broker, so that you are protected long term. That's beauty. Work hard now to have an easier life in the future. Or you can take the easy road now and have a harder life in the future. It's not rocket science. That's the trade-off. Level funding for groups that qualify is hard work now and a better future in general. So, additionally, whenever you're talking about level funding, never use the term guaranteed on surpluses. These are never guaranteed. You don't know what claims are going to be. When people use the word guaranteed around a surplus, they're lying to you, at least as I understand it. You cannot guarantee the future. You can only predict it and then hedge against it or insure against it. This is what we're trying to do here. There are a couple other things that you're going to want to avoid like the plague that fly-by-night brokers use. They say it's just like fully insured. We've covered that. They say it's guaranteed savings. Well, no. It's everybody gets money back. No. Only groups that run well. And they also say, we'll just switch it. And if it doesn't work, we'll switch back. This is a philosophy shift. When you go from opacity and basically putting your head in the sand about your employees' claims to one where you have much clearer reporting and clearer description of what's actually going on, then you're changing your philosophy, because now it's your money. You're more active in the management, Mr. Business Owner, and especially Mr. Broker, because your income is tied to how long you can serve them on these books. So whenever we talk about surpluses, say the surplus rewards the plans for good years because it keeps the money there. And it also, because it's their money, reduces bad habits because it's their money. People change the incentives, they change the outcomes. Level funded plans work better for long term. So once you get that first year surplus back, it starts to really churn and run because you're now building up a usable pool of money for you to provide benefits long term to your employees, Mr. Business Owner. Additionally, some years aren't as good as others. This is still risk. We're still trying to predict the future. And I've broken my leg before, but I don't break it every year. And if I could tell you right now I'm going to break it in 2027, well, then I'd be clairvoyant, and nobody's clairvoyant. Don't let the people on TV lie to you. So with that, you really need to be very candid and very honest when you're talking about these. So whenever you are in your sales process, look for a couple of red flags from the business owner. If they do not want to give you this information, if they are pushing back on you getting the information for you to do your job, just say, okay, it looks like you're happy with where you are, or you're not in enough of a pain for you to actually change. If they won't let you do your job, then don't work for free. Set that expectation during the sales process. This is a partnership between you and the business owner. You're doing a lot of work to try to help them. And if they will not help you help them, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, some people are going to be thirsty, but it doesn't have to be you working for free out there. So when you're introducing level funded plans, realize, do not talk about them like they're exactly the same as fully insured. They're not. Don't guarantee surpluses, and be candid about this. This is a different process. It takes longer, but in the long run, transparency, honesty, and reporting are always better than opacity and hoping somebody else is nice to you in the future. So go out there, see if some of your clients are a fit, and realize you need to do your work so you're an expert on level funding. If we can help you, let us know. And if you need a little bit more information on it, get the book, read the book. It'll make you more educated on level funding. All right, go fight for America. We'll see you.